All right, all right. It's been a while since I've gone live, but want to try to get this going again. Well, not try to. I'm gonna get this going again, and today I'm gonna get it kicked off based on a new movie that's coming out this year. That is actually an old movie, and out of all the movies that we've had over the I guess the history of movies. We've had so many that are really, really dynamic. We've had some films that have been really, really powerful that I think are worthy of being remade, re-platformed. But of all the stories and all the time that we've been in movies as African Americans, which, by the way, I found a film from the late 1800s. Um, just a black couple. It's really brief. It's beautiful. But anyway, so in all the films of all the time, they keep remaking The Color Purple. Came out in the 80s, and it sparked a lot of controversy. Some say that it started the war between black men and women, but that's actually not true. What it did was it fueled the existing war. Hang on. It fueled the existing war. And how did it fuel it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm waiting for my co host, Denise Young, to jump in. And I've got some notes. So if she's tardy, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So just give us a couple more minutes. If you're on Facebook, then you've seen my post from this morning and a discussion that was starting. I did it on Instagram as well. So this broadcast is on both Facebook and YouTube. And if you've got something that you want to say, you can post your comments in the discussion on Facebook. You can also post them on YouTube if you're watching from YouTube. And if you're watching from YouTube, like and share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And and let's continue to engage. So listen, I'm going to quote two sides of the color purple debate. On the first side is a pro debate, and this can kind of get us started. There was a woman named Erdis Thomas. She was just a telephone company employer in Chicago, and she said that she knew a lot of Sealy's when she was growing up in Sunflower County in Mississippi. She said that her mother, her aunts, they were all beaten and brutalized by their husbands. She said the movie just lifted a burden. So a lot of black women can understand that. They can feel her. That's why they felt the movie. But the problem is that many people, and it kind of seemed like Miss Thomas was as well, many people started to embrace the movie as though it were real, and it's not. Ladies and gentlemen, the color purple is not history. It's not a historical work. It's fiction. It's made up. And because no one who wrote the movie, produced the movie, there was nothing in the presentation that gave us statistics. So many of the people since the 80s who've been embracing the movie and saying, oh, yeah, this is how it really is. Most of you have no idea what really is. You don't know who's getting beat up. And I'm going to say something. Uh, Let me bring Denise first. Well, hey, young lady, how are you?
Good afternoon. How are you? Peace and
Good, good.
blessings.
All right, all right. I kind of got us started already. And one of the things that I was talking about is how people have embraced the color purple as though it's some kind of documentary, as though it was based on someone's life. And it's actually a work of fiction, and people need to know that. And I was about to just piss a few people off by telling them another story that they embrace, that's actually fiction. Whew, they ain't gonna like this one, Nisi. Um, Tina Turner's story. Too soon? I don't care. Tina Turner was a great entertainer. She did her thing. She was, sexy as hell back in the day, but her story was a damn lie. And Darryl McIntosh, how you doing, brother? Her story was a lie. Here's why her story was a lie. Tina, and there's 2 points that were lies. Tina told her story from her perspective, which is what white people do, and they call it history. Um, but Tina talked about how Ike beat her, and that's all she talked about. Well, as a young journalist in the early 90s, I got to talk to Ike Turner. I didn't interview him. I just met him at an event and we talked for a few minutes, late 80s, early 90s. Anyway, the thing that he told me, he said, yeah, he admitted that he beat her. But one of the things that he wanted to emphasize, he said, no one ever wants to talk about the fact that she kicked my ass too. Right? He said that most of the time they were drunk and they were high and they were fighting. So the whole concept of her is just some poor victim who just got beat up and that's all it was, is a work of fiction. But here's the point that I'm making with that in Color Purple. Ike Turner, since Tina told her story, has been the singular face of domestic violence, to the point where we've made a verb out of him. I will Ike Turner your ass, And the whole time, two things are happening. Number one, it wasn't just him. They were beating each other. She was a strong, sturdy woman. So he didn't just pick her up and throw her around. They beat each other. The other thing that people don't want to understand, don't want to hear, and this will help them to understand why their relationship was violent and how crazy it was. She was the lead singer of Ike's band, but she had two children by Ike's drummer. Okay. So I'm gonna leave Tina alone because I know y'all love her and you love the iconic negativity that was thrown on Ike. He's dead and gone, and he's still the face, the actual face. A black man is the face of domestic violence, much in the same way that R. Kelly and Bill Cosby are the face of sexual perversion. So now back to Color Purple. It's one of the main reasons, and then I'll let you speak, Denise. That's one of the main reasons why Color Purple was a problem, because what it did, and I remember when the movie came out, because I read the book, which was different from the movie, and I saw the movie, and I was like, this is some bullshit, because it really just showed us as savage brutes, as not very smart, the whole shot. There's a lot in that movie that did damage to the image of the black man, which Oprah delighted in, and which black women embraced. And embraced it as though it was real. Like that's just who we are. Is that what you got from it, Denise? I'm
Well,
sorry. We were
you
we were
I mean, because it's so heavy, um, and here's so before I even get to how it became something else, right? Um, it's very fascinating to me how white people can write their stories, right? And when they write their stories, it is taken as this is a story. It doesn't They don't use the story to define their culture, who they are as a people. It's not used to define subsets within their population.
unless it
Um,
benefits them.
Pardon me?
unless it benefits them.
Unless it benefits them, of course. And so you take, for instance, the show, The Sopranos, which I thought was, and I thought it was an excellently written show. But I think after the first or second season, I stopped watching it.
Okay.
And I stopped watching it not because I didn't think it was good entertainment, not even because I didn't have time, because I actually don't watch a lot of television, but I stopped watching it because I decided I just didn't want to support it. I didn't want to support the idea that you can have a group of people can have a story about virtually basically being degenerates and criminals, right? And there was not going to be any backlash to the Italian American community. There just wasn't going to be that, right?
Right.
And so I decided I didn't want to support that. And so conversely, when we write our stories, right, we don't have that luxury. And particularly, we don't have that luxury, one, because the stories then are taken out of our possession, right? Someone else then controls them. Someone else decides that, oh, this isn't a story, this is the story. Right? This is the story. This is the representation of your culture. This is the representation of women in your community. This is the representation of Black men in your community. And so we have to be on alert. Um, and and it's a shame that we have to be, but it's a truism. We have to be on alert when we decide, okay, here's a Black story that's coming out, and we have to really do the due diligence. It's not just, okay, well, we're going to go to the movies, or we're going to go to the theater, or we're going to go wherever, and we're going to support this, and because it's a Black story. We have to look at, in my personal opinion, we have to be willing to look at the bigger context, and what is the telling of this story going to do for our collective. And see, that's the part where I think where we really go south, right? We're not collectively doing that. And if I can go so far as to say, I don't think that we as Black women collectively do that, because we are so focused on this idea of, Black women being the mule of society, and Black women being so downtrodden, and we're the ones who are the victims, and we're carrying this, and there's so much on our shoulders, and we just got to be out there, we've got to tell our story, and we're so caught up in that narrative that we have blinders on, and we do not look at the bigger picture. Like, what is this story saying? Like, and so, and when we see these stories, right, it's not only that we are comforted by the fact that Black women are promoted or propelled or put on a pedestal or projected, or somehow in these movies they're rescued or they're taken care of or they're redeemed or whatever the case may be. But it has to be, right, which is so unfortunate, it has to be at the sacrifice of Black men.
And and
So
and that's the
yeah.
biggest that's the biggest issue here, because for 40 plus years, Black women have pursued the empowerment of themselves. It's been about Black girl magic. It developed from, let's get parity in the marketplace, in the workplace, in society, in our homes, which, and Black men stood by because all of that sounds good. We didn't want, anybody, our mothers, wives, girlfriends, daughters, we didn't want anybody oppressed. So we were like, all of that sounds good, except that movement went sideways really quick. Right now, we hear a lot of women just yelling, whining, and yeah, I'm gonna say bitching. Black men don't protect us anymore, which is some bullshit. But let's flip that on its head. You want to be protected by a group of people that you have been throwing under the bus for 40 plus years. When our image is in jeopardy as black men, we've heard from black women, suck it up, buttercup. This isn't about you. I'm being empowered, so no one's worried about what's happening to your image, things of that nature. So, in other words, we don't have to protect your image, but when it comes to us, you better protect us. That's that's why people say that this was probably like the penultimate seminal moment in the gender war, because it showed a lot of black men that a great number of black women were just and are just all too willing to throw us under the bus, to just, I mean, this was a horrible piece of shit movie for a lot of black men, but so many black women love it. It's at the point where they don't even want you to talk about it. They don't want you to talk about it. Go get you some color purple and be quiet, man. That's a problem.
I've only seen it in its entirety one time, and that was when it came out in the movies all those many, many, many years ago. And
Yeah,
that was enough for me. Um, but I want to go back to something you said about, black women, seeking parity. I'm all, I'm a black woman, clearly, and I am all for, seeking parity. I guess
yeah,
where I have been confused for many, many years is, why is it that black women are seeking parity with black men versus seeking parity with white women?
Ooh,
And it's a very confusing dynamic
drop the
for me.
jewel.
I don't want to listen to, and do not listen to, white women telling me about my circumstances in society, what I don't have in relation to my black man. One, when I don't have parity in relation to what they have. And
Yes,
two, as importantly, when my black man does not have parity in relation to what their man has. Like, that's you, like, this idea of parity and seeking some sort of equal or level ground absolutely makes no sense in the context of how we have been moving within our collective to achieve, when as a collective we are all suffering under the foot of oppression.
that's
And I feel like at this point, coming out of chattel slavery, coming out of 150 years of Jim Crow, and where we are now, I almost feel like oppression is just, it's I think we have just wrung out the usefulness of the word oppression, because just as you think they can't do anything else, right, they do something else to us.
that's right.
So, under Jim Crow, we had to watch black men, and yes, black women, hanging from nooses. We had to see, our families have their land taken from them, and all of those kinds of things. And here we are, 100 years, almost 100 years after that, and we don't even have black families intact. So it's like,
Yeah,
this, again, this idea of parity, like, we got to really sit down at somebody's table, and clearly it cannot be a black woman's table, talking about she is the table. Which, sisters, I love us, but that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard of. I am the table. Like, what
look,
does that mean? right?
get,
I just needed to do a shout out about that, because when I
yeah,
hear it, it's like the
it's
when you
it's so
scrape it,
ridiculous.
when you hear the scraping on the chalkboard, like that's
Right.
how it makes me cringe, because I don't
Look,
even know, I don't know what that means. and
look,
and
I gave my brother an example. When I was a child, like 2 or 3 years old, if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I wanted to be a fire engine, not a firefighter, a fire engine. Right? How ridiculous. But I was like 2 or 3 years old.
we're grown women talking about I
Grown
am the table.
women,
Oh,
I am the table. I'm
yeah,
like,
that was
okay, I
like
am
that
the
was
fire
my,
engine.
yeah, that was I aspire even now to be the table, like,
Yeah.
so
So
ridiculous.
I'm gonna be the fire engine. But I'm wondering if at some point, if we can get to a place where we can, like you said, whoever's table it is damn sure not going to be at the red table, because we don't want no red table talk. But we have to sit at somebody's table, because we're firing shots across each other's bow. And I don't even think half the people understand what they're. Well, I think a lot of men understand what they're fighting, because it took men damn near 40 years to stand up to black women and even start talking, and now it's getting ugly. But for a lot of black women, they're embracing oppression from black men that for them personally never existed. For them to say that this movie is fact, oh, that happens, didn't even happen to them. Like, like, why are you? And then I'm gonna go back to what you said about oppression in general. If the feminist movement really made sense, they would have been concerned about black women. And white women don't give a damn about none of us, male or female. Darryl McIntosh said, "I believe that parity stems from black women being incorporated into the white women's feminist movement, which just doesn't happen. White women will watch black women get beaten, flounder, just not do well. They're not trying to help you up the corporate ladder. They don't, whatever it is, they don't care. But when they're trying to move something and they need the numbers, then they come to get black women, because then they want you to rock with them. And I really wish more sisters could see through that, because I think that's a huge problem and makes it hard for us to even have real discussions. You know?
Well, I'm not convinced that black women don't see through that. I mean,
Mm.
when we start talking about black people and our collective, and we understand the power of having built a new nation, right? um we when we understand about having built a new culture, taking our memories of and the remnants of what they were allowed to hold on to, and then also combined with memories as we progress through generations. When you think about the fact that we're capable of doing that, and we had already done it, right? We had already done it on the mother continent. So, and
Yes.
we could do, and then we came here and we did it again. So for me, that speaks to just the level of intellect, the ability to reason. I'm not even going to say intellect, the ability to reason. And so now we're facing this concept where black women are just plowing forward on this feminism train. And it's like, but they can't see through it. And like, I don't know that I'm buying that. And the
Woo.
reason is,
That's
again,
it.
we have this ability to reason. What I do believe, and I would be really interested in figuring out if we could do a study on this. But we have been, as Black women, we have been plowed with so many messages that speak to our greatness, right?
Yes.
I mean, I remember very early on this idea of Black women being the savior of the Black community. And I remember being a little bit confused by that.
Yeah.
And literally as a child being a little bit confused because, you know, I born and raised in Chicago like you, and Southside, you come from a family of Baptist folks, and you hear savior in one way. So I was like,
Jesus. Right. So yeah, so to I think we lost you, Denise. Hopefully you'll pop back up. But you're absolutely right. You hear Savior in reference to the Lord, the Lord, the Lord. And so to hear it, as I did right along with you in the 80s, to hear Savior connected to Black women sounded bizarre. Like, so all the things that Black men and women did together, but Black men, of course, took the forefront and took the brunt of the violence and everything else. And now Black women were going to save us.
okay, am I back now?
Yeah, you're back. We don't have your
Oh,
picture yet, but I got your voice. But yeah,
okay.
you're right.
So,
What I was doing, Denise, is connecting that whole message of Black women being the savior that we got back in the day to the Democratic Party, those filthy demons, using it to pit Black women against Black men today, because that old senile bastard in the Oval Office literally said when he got elected, Black women, you saved this election. So he just said, to hell with you, Black men. You
yeah,
still ain't Black if you didn't vote for me. But he
right.
literally told Black women, he said, you saved the election and I owe you. I ain't gonna pay you nothing, but I owe you. So yeah, so the concept of Black women as the savior, I guess it made Black women feel good, but it was confusing. Like, really, you're the savior? It's all on your back now?
Yeah, well, it and not only was it confusing, but it was compounded with all of these other messages of Black women being great. We were being celebrated because, you know, we're single mothers and we make it happen. And just so folks understand, I am a single mother, so this is not a judgment against single motherhood. But let me just say about single motherhood, that was not my preference. I,
That's right.
I need I need folks to understand that was not
Yeah,
my preference, and that was not what I was intentionally aspiring to do. It is how what it ended up being. So I rocked with it. But that was not what I wanted for my life, and that wasn't what I came from.
yeah.
But we're celebrated as you know, as single mothers. We are celebrated as with this, you know, this Black girl magic. And you, I mean, like all of these things are about our empowerment. And then when we became queens, I was like, oh my Lord, is, you know, so there are all of these things. And
Help
I
us,
think
baby
that
Jesus.
and I think when you hear all of these things, right, I think to be able to have to take a step back from it and say, well, wait a minute, there was a huge misstep on our part. I think psychologically that and emotionally it might be too much for us to do. Like you have to really do some serious humbling and say, you know what, we weren't the savior of the Black community. You know what, our crowns have slipped. You know, we have to be able to say those things, and in order to be able to, you know, really reconcile, right, our relationship with feminism. And I really think, because I really don't think it's that we can't see through it. I think it is the humbling piece that is so challenging for us. Like,
That's
you know, who
yeah.
who wants to apologize for like contributing? I was about to use a different phrase. Who wants to apologize for contributing to you know, what has really been a really devastating period in our, you know, our collective. And to sort of sum it up, or even to give it context, in so we're looking at the 19, when, you know, the war on poverty began. At that point, Black women were still, that's like the 1940s through the 50s. Black women are are the least, excuse me, are the most likely to be married, and our children are the most likely to be in a two-parent household. And so in less than a century, that has completely been reversed. And
Yeah,
so to be able, so the numbers don't lie.
right.
We can add. They got us in all these MBA programs and entrepreneurship. So we can add, right?
Yeah.
So the numbers don't lie. So so then we would have to say, okay, well, what is it that we did? And I just think that collectively, you know, it's like the worst case of cognitive dissonance for us. And it's really unfortunate, because we gotta figure out something.
Well, that's powerful, and it's even more powerful, ever more powerful, coming from a Black woman, because all of the things that are said and done that may make Black women as individuals feel good are actually destroying everything around them. They're you know, they're saying things that make them feel good, but then it makes it impossible for them to have relationships with the men that they want. Not just any man, because you know, so Black women are sexy, so somebody wants to get that. But is it someone that you want to have it? And that's the problem. That's why you have so many women. You have more women, more Black women over 40 now who are unmarried with no children than ever before. Than ever before. So all of these things that they say are empowering, maybe not. And so that's why we have to have a come to Jesus meeting. Jesus and Black men and Black women all at the same table. Jesus, Buddha, Allah, the big waffle, E.T., you know what I mean? Casper, Fridley Ghost, the Holy Ghost, you know, we got to sit down at that table, and sisters are going to have to realize you've been duped. You've been used, you've been hoodwinked, you've been run amok, you've been bamboozled. And while it feels good, you know, these Black women out here, oh, I'm a queen, I'm a queen. Yeah, but you also a hoe. Yeah, I know. I know. I knew they were gonna hate me for a bunch of stuff, so I may as well keep telling the truth. And that is where we are today, because Black women have embraced stripper culture, prostitute culture, like everything is about sex. That sexual revolution from the 60s and 70s, when it hit Black women, it just created havoc. There was no real revolution, there was no evolution. People just start having more sex. And so you can't be out here dragging that thing around, but also saying you're a queen. You're a queen, but you sit down at the table with a good and decent man. First time that you guys are meeting, and you ask him if he's gonna eat your booty. You know, I mean, you're on social media all day, every day, wagging your ass. You can't take a picture without turning around and show your ass. And so, as a Black man, hate me if you want, but I'm always going to tell the truth. Why? Because I love Black women, I love Black people, and I love you enough to not lie to your ass. I love you enough to tell you the damn truth. And you cannot be a queen if you out here letting a village idiot with a drool bucket bang that shit out. That's not queenly. And here's the other problem with the whole queen piece and some of the other stuff. Like, they Black women like to say that they're traditional. I want a traditional man. You have to provide and protect. Well, then I need to take you to the doctor to see if your hymen is intact, because, you know, I mean, if we're talking about that tradition, then that's what comes with it. But before we get there, we have to ask ourselves, Black women, you have to ask yourselves, whose tradition are you fucking with? Because talking about provider, protector, while you're not preserving, you know, yourself and your sexual dignity, if you were, uh, What tradition is that? Because it ain't African. It ain't even African American, right? So if you want to say all of these things and you want to protect her, then why aren't you concerned about what is happening to black men? If you want us to protect you, black woman, why wouldn't you want to protect the image of the black man? And the color purple is an assault on the image of black men. The movie itself, but also the dialogue that comes from it. Let me read a couple more quotes. Oprah Winfrey, the who slung this bullshit at us. She said the movie is not trying to represent the history of black people in this country any more than The Godfather was trying to represent the history of Italian Americans. In this case, it's one woman's story. Bullshit. If it weren't trying to represent the history, then the dialogue around it since the 80s would not have been how, oh, yeah, this is real. This is what's happening. Yeah, this is a lot of us. This is our family. This is what's going on. No, you presented it. You and your dude Spielberg, you presented this as some kind of historical representation. And black women need to hear if you continue to just mash forward with not being concerned about what's happening to black men, you're going to continue to look around. You're not going to see anybody to protect you.
I guess, well, first of all, I actually have a comment about the prostitution culture. I almost feel like we have, with what we see, I almost feel like we have given prostitutes bad names, because prostitutes, um, as a form of employment, I mean, growing up, I mean, I remember in the neighborhood, or downtown or whatever, women being prostitutes, and they were very, very clear about what they were doing, and why they were doing it, right?
That's
This
yeah,
was not a um this was not um a situation where they were trying to, in fact, they, often they hope they never saw you again. It was like, okay, let's get in, let's get out. I've, performed a service, you're going to pay me.
right.
Now you have women who are doing similar things, but they're trying to mask it, right, as the responsibility of the man. So like
Mhm.
it's something that they are entitled to. And I find that, like, if it's your body, if you want to go out there and do whatever it is you're going to do, that's on you. But I think we need to stop trying to mask it as something that it's not. We are not
Freedom.
entitled to have men spend money on us. We are not in, like, I saw today on Facebook, one of those little reels. There's this woman, and I had never seen her before, but I guess she does sort of like like little comedy things, or maybe her persona is supposed to be perceived as funny, and it was, there, she's sassy in her humor, but she was carrying this purse that she called a wife person. She said, I'm going to start, sort of manifesting this, because I want a man, I want to be married, and I'm going to start carrying a wife purse. So I was trying to, because I had never heard that term, and the
Yeah.
wife purse was this little bitty thing. And what she said is that it had enough room in it for lip gloss, and I think she said audacity, and she barely had enough room in it for the lip gloss, because in her words, as a wife, she ain't paying for shit. And I was like this is so indicative of where we are. And looking at men, not as in their entirety, as beings, as human beings in their humanity, but it's like, what do you have, what do you have, what do you have? And it is It's embarrassing, and I don't embarrass easily, but it
It
is
should.
embarrassing to see women. It's shameful and it's hurtful. Because I have sons, I have grown sons, but I have also been very clear with my grown sons. We, what they need to look for in women, right? You don't owe women anything in terms of this idea of dating. No, you don't you're if they need something, ask them to check in with their fathers, because that's not who you are.
That's right.
If
That's right.
so we've gone through all of this, but that brings me to my second point. Sort of what you were talking about in terms of um understanding or being concerned about Black men. What I don't understand is how we are so dismissive of Black men when we are mothers to Black men. Like I just remember 33 years ago like it was yesterday, and having this baby boy and me thinking, oh my God, I'm in love, which I was and still am. But I just remember how in the most organic way, how my, not even my thinking, but how my receptors, right, were so open and so tuned in on how society, people, systems, whomever perceived my child or looked at my child or treated my child.
Yes.
And so to be so dismissive of that as mothers of Black sons is disturbing. And again, I think it goes back to this. It is complete and total cognitive dissonance, and it would just wreck our whole world, where we would just have to say, oh my God, we have just really been foolish, and we have just, you know, we just have been off the chain and contributing to um the demise of our collective. And
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And if things are going to heal, which is why it's going to be difficult, Black women are actually going to have to say that to us. They're actually, because things are so far gone. Anytime you talk about, oh, Black women need to do, oh, what about Black men? What about, oh, shut the fuck up. We are far gone, mostly
can
because Black
can can
men
I can I interrupt you just a
absolutely.
moment on that point? Because I actually, and not so much interrupt you, but I really want you to spend some time on that point.
Yes.
um and how, so it's not like we're even in a situation where collectively people aren't trying to have conversations. Black men aren't trying to tell us, this really hurts, this really bothers us. It's not like that's not happening, because I think that there was a time when Black men were silent, right,
Oh, absolutely. For a long time.
for a long time, but Black
We just watch
men,
and let it
right,
happen.
they're telling you this. We're hearing from them, left and right on all kinds of platforms,
Yes.
and we almost mock it, right? Or
All men. We're
our
being mocked.
like immediate responses, as you said, well, what about, like, you can't even listen to take it in. So
Right. That's right. Well, yeah. So basically, what's happening is that people want to say it's balanced. Oh yeah, well, Black men have done X, Y, and Z. Look, Black men are doing the same stupid shit that we've always done. Like, there's no new stupid shit. Like, we do stupid shit, and we've been doing it, and it isn't brand new. The problem is that Black women started doing brand new destructive shit, and they're doing more. And when you get to the point where you, number one, say that you're better than another group, it's hard for that group to talk to you and give you the benefits that you want. That's number one. Number two, when you start to not just ignore the misery of that other group, but you mock it. One of the biggest pieces of destruction in terms of Black men, of male and female relationships, are these goofy women. Not, they're not even goofy, these evil demons who have mocked Black men being shot by police, calling us bullet bags. I hope you continue to attract those bullets from police. When you get to this level, sure, black men are pushing back, but black women got to push back. But we see a lot of black women who either ignore it or who think it's funny. And we gotta understand, look, black woman, shit is about to get ugly. It's ugly now, it's about to get uglier in this country and on this planet. And there will be a time when things are so bad that you will not be able to walk through this land without the protection and covering of a warrior. Do I need to say that again? Things will be so bad, black woman, that you will not be able to walk safely through this land without the covering and protection of a black warrior. But he will not when you won't speak to him, when you're just putting yourself in danger, when you're just disrespecting him, disregarding him. I mean, look, I posted the other day. Hell, it's a lot of black women won't even say hello. They do whatever they can to keep from saying hello. You don't say hello because you say that if you say hello, a brother might get the wrong idea. Now you're in, jeopardy because now he wants to harm. Okay, you won't take the risk of saying hello to me. You won't acknowledge my humanity because the risk is too great. Why would I take the risk of going to jail or being harmed to protect you? We got to start having those discussions because it isn't as simple as black man, take your share of the blame. As I said, we do silly shit. We've been doing silly shit. None of it's new. The new silly shit is what black women are doing, which is disregarding, disrespecting, and disconnecting. Darryl McIntosh says, a house divided cannot stand. And we're falling. We're falling apart because I hear you, black woman. You want to be independent. You want to stand. You want your strength to be recognized. All of that is okay. But when you start to say you're better than black men, you don't need black men are a burden to you, now all the protection goes away. And why would someone provide for someone who is better than them? If I'm making $500,000 and you're saying you got the money, why don't you provide? Why would I? You're better than me. Black women have gotten to the point where it's called culture seeding, right? You seed the culture and you watch the discontent and the misinformation grow. And white feminism, which is a tool of white supremacy, has done that so well that now black women, which is the black man's natural ally, is starting to look like an enemy. Starting to look like an enemy. You can't continue to disparage us and tear us down. And I'm going to say something that I shouldn't have to say. Not all black women. All right. But so you shouldn't be so just eager and energetic about tearing us down and with this, with that. Like at some point, again, Denise, going back to that table, we got to sit down at the table and talk. What is it you want? What is it that you need? And do this back and forward, because the whole approach that black women have today, it's a problem. It's a problem. And I don't know if we can, I'm going to be honest. I don't know if we can get past it. Because Denise, when we talk, I almost always end up with, hey, well, it's almost over. It's almost over. Like, my son's 15. Maybe his generation can pick it up, dust it off, and do something with it. Because I really do believe that for most black women over 40, they're done. They're done. Because black men over 40, here are the things we're talking about. We don't want to get married to women over 40. We damn sure don't want to provide for them. We don't want to protect them. We don't want to have babies with them. And now there's a whole movement. If you're a woman over 40, men over 40 are saying, let's not even date them if they have children. So you talk about being left alone. Preston James, what's up, brother? You're talking about being alone and abandoned and left without protection. Shit. White feminism did its job, didn't it? Did its job and did it well.
Well, I mean, it did it well, and actually, I don't even make a distinction between white and black feminists because I don't I think there is a feminism, and I think that Black women have tried to convince ourselves that there is such a thing as Black feminism, and we need to stop that. And if we look at the history of how feminism was born, right, so I don't even give us that credit.
That makes
Um,
sense.
but what what also strikes me about how we are approaching men or engaging with Black men, and not or just either not understanding the data, which I said again, I don't believe is that we don't understand anything, but just being really dismissive of the data that shows that we are no longer getting married. Um, we have our counterparts, by the time we're 40, our counterparts have already been married, um, have been divorced, may even be on their second marriage, and we have not had a first. Um, and so
Yeah.
when you look at those kinds of things, and you see how the behavior persists, where we are um, criticizing Black men, or we're stating these what Black women refer to as standards. They're just mad because we have standards, which is absolutely not the case.
Not the case.
But when we continue to look at how we are not paired with not just the person that's our natural ally, but really our natural mate, it stands to reason that you would, if you had a biology class, you understand that Black men do not need Black women to continue the generations of Black folks. They don't need it.
Uh,
I didn't want to go there today, but I kind of feel like,
I mean, that's where it is. So why
and
not go there?
and I have 3 children. I've contributed.
So you did your part.
I did my part. Some I was chosen.
Yeah,
I did my part. But
absolutely.
we got to be very real. Black men do not need us to continue. You partner with somebody else, that child is going to you know have some Black DNA, and obviously genetics, and then you let that Black child partner with another Black person, and you're right back where you at square
Yeah,
one by the time, and with your
yeah,
grandchildren, right? That's
absolutely.
just how it is going to be. So, and we need to understand that what happens is, when you look at the data about the numbers relative to Black women getting married, there has not been an increase in white men marrying Black women. So somewhere
That's
along the
right.
line, we are in under the impression that there's a bunch of white men out there waiting to marry us. And and if that's your
Right.
thing, that's your thing. But I would just want women to know, especially when I hear these conversations about, oh, just look at other options, and and I first of all, I always get I kind of have to do the Scooby Doo, like, huh? Because
Well,
like, I right, like, I believe in love. I do.
yes, yes,
I do. I believe I'm really idealistic in that way.
yeah.
So, and if you meet somebody, and they just making you feel see stars and all that, like, okay, I'm not gonna fault you at all, because that's your thing. I don't do that. It's 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 not my place to do it, right?
Right.
What I would say is that I don't think that there are other women, particularly, and I'm going to speak particularly to white women. I don't think white women are having lunches. Girl, you know what, Susie? You know what? You just gonna have to look at some other options, because I'm telling you, these white men have lost their minds. Like, I don't think that Susie and Hannah are doing that. Like, I just
No.
really don't do. I don't
They
believe
still
that's
have
happening.
their covenant. They still have their covenants in
They
place.
still have their. They still.
We
Let
have
me tell
none.
you. Well,
You
you and
are
I
the
talked about this. Their covenant is so deep that they have said, you know what? I don't care how that baby got here. You better have it. That's how deep that covenant is. And we forget who was in line with that legislation. It wasn't just white men. That was being
white
spearheaded
women.
by white women.
That's right.
And we need
Because
to
they're trying to
understand, like,
preserve white babies.
right. This ain't a, and black women, because we need to, what you need? You need what?
They
You
worried
need
about
what?
they were look, Dr. Neely Fuller said it, and it's still true, and it always will be. If you do not understand white supremacy, everything else will confuse you.
Everything else will confuse.
And
And
abortion
so, right,
confuses people because it's not about anybody else but those white babies.
about those white babies, why, they don't care about ours. And so we're telling ourselves, oh, we should open up ourselves to other options. And again, I tell, when the love arrow or Cupid or whomever, when he hits you, hey, go for it. You get
Yeah.
one life to be happy.
Love who you want to
never
love.
I would never deny anybody that, because this world is harsh and nobody should have to go through it alone.
That's
What I
right.
will say is, I think it is foolish of Black women to think that we should be dismissive of Black men as mates, particularly based on foolish criteria. And yeah, I'm gonna say foolish criteria, because this isn't about having any standards. Because when I
It is.
hear when I hear about standards, when you talk about standards, like with people, right, I think of things like, is he nice? Right? Do he know how to say please and thank you? Is he kind? You know, does he have a
Yeah.
sweet spirit? Is he connected with something greater than himself? Does he care about children and the elderly? Like, is he willing to help? Like, I think about those, to me, are standards, right? This, how much money he
Yes.
makes, this, what kind of car he, like, we're still talking about those things. That woman, Ebony Williams, there was a whole conversation on social media about what she was saying about bus drivers. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know about you all, but I value the bus drivers in my community. I appreciate them, because I need you to get me to what, because I don't drive. I need you to get me where I'm going
Read that bus
safely.
driver.
I need you to
Well,
I need you
yeah.
to think that your job is important, because it is important. And so when you come back and say, well, if I'm not, I wouldn't be with a bus driver, because that, and then this was the worst part. And I know I'm getting off track, but the worst part is when she came back to try to backpedal and did that whole talking points on, mediocrity. She then put the onus on Black boys who get C's in school. And I'm like, C's and D's in school. So I'm like, so now you have tried to backpedal and clean up your foolish talk. And then you turn around and still are blaming Black men via
Yes.
Black boys, never considering the fact that Black boys, excuse me, the majority of Black boys, as are Black children in general, are educated by white women, which means they go to a classroom every day, and 9.5 times out of 10, they are not valued, they are not respected.
Right.
There is no expectations for them, and the only thing they're thinking about is how can we how much longer do we have to put up with them, and what
Right.
can we do so we don't have to put up with them.
Ways to get them out of there. That's right.
Yeah. So we're not trying to educate them. And so to come with that, I thought was so incredibly foul. And I'm glad that,
But
there were
isn't it consistent?
many white, excuse me, many black men on threads that chewed her up and spit her out.
That's right. But isn't that consistent? We see so many, educated women who think that there's some kind of prize who take a shit on black men. And that's just weird to me because I'm like, if you want to be protected, provided, shut the hell up. Nobody's gonna let you stop working. Take your lazy ass back to work. If you want a provider, try Jesus. Jesus provides. But I don't. Um, we used to be partners. Even if the black woman was in the home, she was taking care of the home. She probably had her side business. We just didn't call them businesses, but she was taking in laundry. She was cooking. She was going to clean somebody's house. She was taking care of kids that weren't hers. So the whole concept of black women having a period in time in this nation where they were just chilling and the black man was breaking his back and just making it so that they could just go eat bonbons and go to the spa. It's like, shut the fuck up. I'm sick of hearing that because it's destroying all of us. And we got to get to the point because here's where I'm at. And I know a lot of black men over 40 have reached this point or worse. I don't want to date black women over 40 anymore. I just don't because it has been consistent. I mean, I started dating at 13. I think I had my first date, and all of those dates have been with black women. And I have consistently over the last 20 years sat down in front of chicks who are only asking if what they're going to get. They want to know what they're going to get. And it's gotten more and more crass. It used to be, well, I just want to know if you can show me a good time. I just want to know if you're a good guy. I just want to know if you have a good job so that we can work together and have a good living. Now it is literally, I need a provider and I need you to lick my coochie. And I'm just like, yeah. I mean, and I'm just gonna be real. I've gone on, dates, and I'll put this out there. I've been celibate for some years. And so coming out of it and starting to date, I've been on dates with women who first date, oh, I love your facial hair. I can't wait to ride your face. I'm gonna ride that beard. And I'm like, if you touch me, I will beat you. I will pick you up and throw you somewhere, you nasty, filthy animal. But that's where we've gotten, and they think that shit is cute. And so they're not just saying it to just the low budget dudes. Here I am, an educated guy. I'm professional. I got a film out. I'm a single father, full time, taking care of my kid. Why would you talk to me like that? Why would you talk to me like I'm not a fucking human being when I am sitting in front of you trying to see if we can put something together and love each other and make our lives better, and you just want to know about my money and my sexual prowess? You're disgusting to me now. And so a lot of us, we're starting to talk. We got the manosphere, which we can talk about that later, but there's a lot of us who starting to talk, and we're self-reporting about how black women are approaching us. On the one hand, you think we're low budget, we're beneath you, blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, you're talking to us so nasty, so reckless. We know that that's because you've just been on the track too long. You've just been, and not all black women. So you've been on the track too long. So we know here's what we're doing, Denise. Many of us, we're going younger. I'm committed to that. Women under 40. Here's what we're also doing. This summer, I'm going down south. I'm doing on a fact finding mission. I'm going to small towns in Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. And people are calling it the passport bro movement. It's not a movement, brothers. Everybody, black, white men, black, white people have been doing it for years. Black women have been going to Jamaica to get their groove back. But for us, for black men, we're looking for options because we no longer see women over 40 as valuable, as valid, as as mates. And so it's not that we're like, I'm gonna go get me a white woman, some chicken and a biscuit. Some of us still want black women, so we will go down south. We will go below 40. We will go to other countries, and we're not like white black women love going to Europe. They love going to Dubai. Every black man who's getting a passport is not going, to some European nation. They're going to, Jamaica, Dominican Republic. They're going to Africa. They're going to places. Brazil. Brazil is a black nation, people. If you don't know it, you better do some research, but ask somebody. They're going to black nations
Yeah.
looking for black women.
Just a note on Brazil. Brazil probably, in terms of not just population, but its political and economic and social institutions that oppress, probably mimics the United States the closest.
Absolutely. And the black population is actually larger than it is in the United States. And the Brazilians are going through a black revolution now. So it ain't just not these white Brazilians that we see come over here. They're Brazilians that look like us. So these brothers aren't just, I'm gonna go get me a white woman, some chicken, and some watermelon. They're sincerely wanting an option to American black women who continue to show us how much they hate us. Hate,
Yeah,
hate.
I think if I could appeal to, black women, because Terrain Walker, who's a journalist um, and just really has been a huge voice in this space of really uncovering and calling out misandry. Um, said in a tweet one day, and I think I mentioned this to you, that black women needed to start calling out other black women when we see this behavior. And so
Yes.
I tweeted back to the brother. I'm like, who gonna check them? Who gonna check them?
That's the
Like,
black woman's national anthem. Who gonna check me,
who
boo?
gonna check them? That ain't that's not. And I'm
Nobody.
not saying, because we should be calling them out, and certainly I do, and I know others do, right? So
Yes.
we should be calling them out. But that ain't a strategy, because I mean that's not a viable strategy to it coming to a head, because these black women who are in so rooted and immersed in this feminist experience and expression, right? You can't check them,
You
because
can't check.
they that's not what they're on. Again, this cognitive dissonance. I do think what has to happen, which we don't have a clear understanding of, is how much of our um, black collective woman population um, really subscribes to feminism. Like, that's what we don't have a true picture of. And the reason I say that is because we understand that every time black women are supposed to be represented in media, in the academy, etc., they put a mic in the hands of a feminist, right? That's what they do. But we don't know at the in the hearts, like really in the core, in the nucleus of our communities, right, if that's what's really happening.
Well, here's the
And
problem. We're not gonna know, and here's
we're
why.
and I wonder if there is a way to know, because I think that's
There
important.
is.
and
Yeah.
and and the reason I think it's important, now here is where I think the calling out part, it becomes important, because for me personally, I'm tired of feminists being able to speak for me as a black woman. Right.
Sure.
I'm tired of it. I've been tired of it. I've been saying this, like, you can't speak for me. You just can't, because what you're saying is so anti-African, is so anti-black. You cannot speak for me. But I think we need to know, because it could be a situation where we it's where the narrative has had such a swell where we have seen women do things in these pockets, right? And it's because it's happening all over. Now, don't get me wrong, we understand that it's widespread. But
Absolutely.
in the same way that, somehow the narrative is that, because the majority of Black men, they just chasing white women. And we know that that is absolutely not true. I don't care how many times you see Black athletes and they sitting up at, when they get ready for the draft pick and they got a white girlfriend. I don't care how many times you see that, because there was a study that actually showed, even within professional sports, and I think they only looked at the NBA and the NFL, the majority of Black men who are married are still
I'm married to
married
Black
to
women.
Black women. And we know
That's
that data bears true with Black men who are not in
yeah,
professional sports.
yeah.
So, but the narrative, the belief is, well, that's what they do. And that narrative
It's so tight.
is so old.
But before we slide too far along, let's go back to the whole who's a feminist thing. And I don't think we can tell, because a lot of sisters, when you ask them if they're a feminist, they'll say no. And so the way we'll be able to tell is, instead of asking, "Are you a feminist?" we have to have feminist propaganda and ask them if they subscribe to that. So you can say you're not a ghost, but you just walk through the wall.
Right,
You
right,
can
right,
say
right.
you're
Okay,
not a
I feel you on
feminist,
that.
but if you're following feminist propaganda, because that's the problem. A lot of sisters won't identify as a feminist, but they follow the feminist propaganda. So de facto, they're feminists. And
Well,
that's how we'll be able to tell.
and I agree with that. But and here's what's interesting about um feminist propaganda. Some of that stuff is so incredibly subtle.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and you're just going along as, being your happy Black woman self, right? And then I'll give you a perfect example. Black Lives Matter. We ain't know what we were signing on to. We had to, until you start looking, you know,
So insidious.
and the thing about it is that those leaders, those three women, they they probably could have continued in the vein that they were going, except they showed their hand. Like,
Well, I
if
don't think.
people weren't really, because we were hurting so much from the police brutality,
Yeah.
nobody was looking at them like, oh my goodness, here you got these three Black women, and and I think at least two of them are lesbians. Nobody was looking at them like, okay, y'all are not the right people. Get out of there and just stop on a dime. Like, we need to, nobody was doing that. We
We
were
didn't know where they were going, but they knew. I don't think
right,
they
but
turned the corner. They knew where they were going from
right.
there.
No, they absolutely knew. And so that's why I
Yeah.
said that they showed their hands. And so
Yeah.
then when you start to show your hand, then naturally people are like, and of course, Black men figured it out before, Black women. But, the reason I use that as an example is because I know I was one of the first people with my sign talking about Black Lives Matter, and,
Yeah.
trying to send in my little $5 check. and
Right.
and then you start to hear some things, and you're like, well, that don't really sound right. And then I popped up, and I was like, well, let me check out, maybe I'm just not understanding, let me check out the mission statement. And you read the mission statement and all the core values, and there's no mention of straight Black men. Like,
That's
it's
right.
like they go out of their way. Like, they don't go down the street to the corner store, right? They go in the opposite direction, then they go 5 blocks over, then they come up another six, right?
And then
And
circle
then
back
they,
around.
they take a quick turn, right, to like avoid that one diagonal, because they got to prolong the route a little bit more, and then they come loop all the way around and still manage to avoid Black men.
Right.
like
Well, yeah, and I think it's important, and we can do another show. I want to spend just a few more minutes, and I got some quotes, but I think to kind of put a pin in that discussion, we need to have another discussion and talk about the influence and the destruction, the damage that the LGBT community has caused the Black community. Because the LGBT, they don't give a shit about Black LGBT members. And they also, like feminism, are a part of white supremacy. And so many of us don't understand that, because Black people, we're such a loving people, such an inclusive people. We're like, oh, they're being oppressed. We love them. And they're like, yes, thank you. I hate your Black ass. And so we gotta get to the point where we
Pretty much.
understand
That's what they do.
LGBT, yeah, LGBT, they're not our friends. These fucking illegal immigrants, they're not our friends. We got to understand who's our friends. Nobody. So just us. And that brings us back around to Black women who are embracing movements and groups that are not us, are basically damaging themselves. Because Black woman, there is no one who loves you more, no one who is dedicated to you no more than us, than Black men. And when you place yourself in a position where you start to look like the enemy, where you start to open your mouth and the enemy's words fall out, then you become de facto the enemy. So when you embrace a movie like Color Purple that has damaged the Black male image, and you don't give a shit, you don't care because it's entertaining to you and it empowers you, it actually disempowers you, because your natural mate and protector looks at that. And whereas we were silent before, now we're like, oh, okay, so you rocking with them? Then I'm not rocking with you. To the point we've reached such the precipice of destruction where, as a youth in my 20s, I don't give a damn what was going on. If somebody was yelling at a Black woman or about to hurt her, I put the game. Look, when the Black woman's in trouble, I am not slow. I put on my cape and it's the way I go. Right? But these days, I might toss you a call to 911. I'm not jumping out there to defend some random woman I don't know, especially they don't speak to me. They don't say hello. They're saying all this crazy stuff. I'm not, so things have changed. And I need Black women to see that, not as us being hostile towards you, but we have started to defend ourselves from you because you're starting to look like the people who assault us to begin with. You need us, and you need to act like you need us, and you need to act like we can defend you and do the things for you that make sense without harming ourselves. Brother McIntosh says many of our own women embrace the rainbow alphabet people more than they do straight melanated men. That's real talk. And let's not say melanated men because other people claim that. Let's go ahead and say Black. We're Black because they don't want to be Black. They don't want that. They want the rhythm, but not the blues. You're right. The straight Black man is under assault. And instead of us closing ranks, Black men and Black women, men are starting to close ranks against everybody, including American Black women, specifically American Black women over 40. So you got to look differently, be differently, walk differently so that we can actually, yes, Brother McIntosh, we need each other, because otherwise we can rock out. We can go down, like I said, I'm going down south, then I'm going to go to another nation. There are things that we can do, and brothers who are outside of our race. I'm not, and it sounds crazy because I'm a Black nationalist, but I'm not mad at interracial couples. Do what you do. And I know this sounds crazy, maybe it sounds sexist, but the dynamics are different when Black men marry outside of the race than when Black women do. Because Black women, a lot of those sisters are doing it for the wrong reasons, and so they're submissive, they're being subjugated, and it's kind of a toy. Like this one sister was, she's not a sister, this one woman who happens to be Black, she was on social media because her husband used to beat the hell out of her and call her a Black bitch when they were having sex. So it was a fetish for him. We're not going to see that as much with men who are actually with women of other colors. Not that I'm encouraging that. I'm simply saying Black men have options to create Black babies. We have options to find the happiness that we deserve. You're the first option. You need to be that option. You need to be it. Stop telling us what we like. Stop saying we're supposed to like just any old damn thing. Anybody's a queen. You done been out there with 100 men and they've done all kind of diabolical, dastardly, nasty shit to you. And I'm supposed to be like, "Whoa, you still a queen? Come on, queen. I want you to have my baby in your polluted ass womb." We we got. I was gonna say it differently because I watched the movie Scarface. Anybody who knows what scene I'm talking about, you know what I was gonna say. But we gotta, like Malcolm X said, we ourselves have to lift the level of our community. We gotta start looking at each other differently. And I need black women to understand that. Now I really wish that there was like a movement to throw this damn black story, The Color Purple. Throw that shit the hell away. Throw it away. Throw it away. Any closing thoughts, Denise?
Well, one, I do want to say to the artists, because oh my gosh, it's some incredible black artistry that is going to be participating in um this new film adaptation of a musical. Um, one, what I would say to them is, please don't take it personally. Um,
Yeah,
it's not about you. It's not about your contributions. It's not even about your choices in terms of work, because we understand what Hollywood does or doesn't do to support black artists. So I would say, please don't take it personally, and this is
right.
not a an attack
Pursue
on,
your craft, make your money. It's not.
right. It's not an attack on
Well, it
you.
is personal with Okra. With
I
Oprah
well,
Winfrey,
I think it
it's
very well may be for
absolutely
a lot
personal.
of people. Yeah, because I mean, people haven't forgotten that that's where where a black man was able to get on television and say that the black gay community was on, the black men were on the DL and all of. So there are lots of things, having white people from Forsyth County on her show, and and you have black people who are so incredibly emotional about those kinds of things, and just being really traumatized in those situations, because short of standing I think I'm like a whole lot of black people. If you put me in front of somebody who is telling me that I'm worthless simply because I am black, I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna like snatch your throat out, right? Like that's like
That's right.
those are the feelings that I have, right? And
Yeah.
so clearly those people in the audience, those black people couldn't do that. And so you're asking, what are you asking to do? To have a conversation with these people for what? It was trauma. It was unnecessary trauma. So I think a lot of this is personal for a lot of different people when it comes to Oprah, because people remember those shows and those kinds of, conversations that just did not do black people justice. So
And she
I could,
attacked like men specifically too.
yeah. Oh yeah. So so
So
absolutely. Think it's can be very personal. So that's one thing. I want that community to not think that it's personal. Um but I also want to say that um in terms of, this is what I would say specifically to black women. And that is, sisters, it's not a point of whether that story is someone's story. It is the fact that that story has been propelled for now, what is it? Almost 4 decades, right?
37 years.
37 years, it has been propelled as the story of black families, like the defining narrative of how our black men conduct themselves. And as a black woman, right, who knows the stories of my grandfather, who knows the stories of my great grandfather, I know that that is not my family story. And so it becomes very it's it doesn't serve us. It is an injustice to us collectively to allow that to be our defining story. And then the last thing that I would say to sisters is that, sisters, if we say we want to be partnered and paired with Black men, then we have to start acting like it.
Boom, baby. Well, I want to end this discussion on the color purple with a quote from Vernon Jarrett, who at that time was a columnist for Chicago's Sun Times. He was talking to the president and the attorney general at the time, which we can say the same thing to the our current president, that they've decided they are going to turn back the clock on us. The purpose of movies like this is to make it acceptable to you. And we've got to
Wow.
understand that these slavery movies, these period pieces that present man savage, yeah, they want to get there, and they're saying all of this crazy shit. Biden wasn't saying to Black women, vote for me or you ain't Black. He was saying it to straight Black men. The LGBT community issued that edict that straight Black men are the white people of Black people. The trans man, whatever, the men who were dressing up like women decided that it was a problem with straight Black men. Straight Black men they want us to date them, love them, protect and provide. No, brother, hold your own nuts, and it's important for us to understand those messages aren't coming from our LGBT brothers and sisters. Those messages are coming from that fucked up community that is a part of white supremacy and hates us.
Well, I if I can, just to I know we gotta wrap up, but what you said about that message about uh, straight Black men really being the villain of the Black community, that's so important because that messaging, and this is where we have to really double down on understanding um, the power and destruction behind liberalism, because that messaging came straight from liberalism. And so you have liberal Black folks out here. They're all in their they're in all of our academic institutions, right? This is, why we can't have,
Absolutely.
conversations where Black studies is no longer Black studies, but it's, all about gender and sexuality, and none of it ever come, like, again, it's like a leasing of our struggle, and so none of it comes back to the oppression of Black people, right? So that
That's right.
conversation and that messaging comes from liberalism. And so the first time I saw it in print was by the brother who was part of the Very Smart Brothers duo, Damon Young, no relation, uh, no relationship there. Um,
Right.
it was by this brother, and he wrote this hideous. It's a hideous article about Black men and their role in the Black community. If I can just, I'm going to paraphrase something he said in this, and we might have to pick this up the next time, Darryl. But
Sure.
paraphrasing a quote he made in his article, where he says that Black men, demand the biggest piece of the chicken, and they are the least deserving because they contributed the least to getting it. And I thought that
Boom.
I just had never heard of such a devaluing of straight Black men by other Black people. Like, I just, like, I didn't,
Yeah.
I couldn't even fathom it. So
Well, we do need to have a whole nother conversation about that because they duped us as well. We thought the Very Smart Brothers were just regular dudes. And we found out that the Very Smart Brothers were very gay brothers and that they were actually representing LGBT and not the Black gay community. not the black LGBT, that these filthy bastards were representative of something that isn't connected to anything good in the black community. So I think we need to do a show specifically on the LGBT and what how we should receive the messages that
Yeah.
we're getting from them, because they're attacking straight black men, and a lot of black women are holding hands singing kumbaya. Like, those
Yeah.
aren't your friends.
Yeah. We're gonna have to definitely dissect that because it was a hideous piece.
Yeah.
Hideous piece.
So let's do that. So, glad we're back on this. We'll schedule
Absolutely.
another one. And everybody who watched it now, or who will watch it, thank you. We're about to go ahead and, and crush it and keep it moving. Thank you, Denise.
Appreciate you, brother Darryl, as always.
All
Peace,
right.
peace and
All
blessing.
right. Peace and blessings. Goodbye.